Hey folks, so taking a break from the textbooks. So today we are going to work on thinning out the dreaded wiring loom. I know I've been avoiding it like the plague because it kind of, I don't want to say it terrifies me. I just don't like doing it because it's going to be a pain in the ass. It's going to be maybe hunched over for many hours doing it, but I got to get away from my textbooks or I might just actually bash my head in with one. So many of you guys know that the wiring harness that is in the tray in front of the windshield is just a daunting disaster. Let me show you what I'm talking about. And this is what I'm talking about. Now, originally I never thinned out the wiring harness because I wanted to get the thing actually running and potentially inspected, but since PennDOT is busting my balls so much, I figured, what the hell, I might as well fix that. I'm also dealing with a couple other electrical gremlins. Biggest issue is that the four-ways are very dim, but the turn signals work just fine. I've replaced the four-way hazard switch, which is right there. I've done pretty much everything I can think of. I've changed out the grounds. I've redone the grounds, and I'm still not able to get anywhere. So I'm dealing with that. But today what we're going to do is we're going to turn this disastrous hunk of crap. Already started wiring or taking out the wiring harness part for, this is actually for originally for where the radio and all that would be. We're going to go ahead and get rid of that. And we're just going to thin this bad boy out so I actually have some space in here and it doesn't look like a wonderla. I'm honestly, I have nothing intelligible to say. This just, it hurts my brain just looking at this. And I've seen what other people have done for cable management on their Exocets, and I'm just thinking to myself, God, I've really let the ball down. I've got to fix this. So today, that is what we are going to be doing. We're going to be thinning out this disaster of a wiring harness. So given that it's going to be a very long video, if I was to videotape myself doing it, because I'll probably be out here about 8 hours, hopefully not that long, I'm going to just take pictures and we're going to make a montage. So let's do it! Okay, so we're about 2 hours into this wonderful operation, and so this is what we've got, and I've got a ton of crap here on the floor. I mean, there is let me zoom in, and there's a whole mess of wires. Just a ton of crap. And I'll be honest, there is like way too much. There we go. There's way too much electrical tape on this. Like, oh my God, Mazda went overboard. Holy shit. So, basically what I'm doing is I'm tracing back everything I know I don't need. Like the airbag sensor, it's got like 15 wires coming out of it. It's this blue dongle thing right here. So, I know I don't need that. So I'm going to cut it off at the source, or at the plug there. And then I'm just going to trace every wire back to its home, pretty much, wherever it comes from. And if there's something, if it's spliced into another wire, I obviously check to make sure if I still need that. And there's quite a few in here. I'll see that there's wires that are spliced together throughout the harness that trace back to a common ground or a common power supply, whatever it might be. And obviously, don't screw up and cut anything like you actually need, like the wiring harness for the ECU or something like that. I didn't do that. I'm just saying. So yeah, that's really my biggest pain in the ass right now is just tracing back all of the leads and getting off the electrical tape. The electrical tape is just, I mean, that's got to be 80% of my time right now. I've spent just pulling it off. But I mean, there's a lot of wire there on the floor. That's probably 2 pounds of wire. It's got to be. It's got to be. Between the air conditioning control, the radio control, stuff for the doors and all that. I mean, oh my God. I'm just like, I very much regretting not doing this sooner. But just take your time, put on some music, grab a Red Bull. In my case, I drank one of the last Full Throttle Blue Agaves. Given that they are not making them anymore, I'm trying to buy all of them up. Yeah. So if anyone's got a supply of them, let me know. I want them. But I'm just chugging away at it slowly. Take your time with this. If you screw this up, it can be really, really detrimental to getting this thing to run. It's definitely something that you're going to want to make sure you've got plenty of lighting. And trace every single wire completely back to wherever it comes from before you cut it. Don't just think, oh, that's the same wire. There's like 6 wires in here that are brown with a black stripe, and they run right next to each other, and they're going by completely different things. Take your time. You screw this up, you're going to pay for it, and you're not going to have a good day. So I'm going to get back to it here and try not to lose my mind. And here comes the mailman. Alrighty. Alrighty guys, so we are here at day 2 of thinning out the wiring loom. Yes, I am dressed differently. I'm not a hobo. I don't wear the same clothes every day. Sometimes I try, but my wife does yell at me. And I'm actually going to go to the gym first. Kind of wake up my brain because I haven't had any coffee yet. But what I'm going to do at the end of the video is I'm going to go over exactly all of the connectors that I cut off. So the airbag, the AC condenser fan, relays, the radio relay or plugs, like all the plugs that I'm cutting. I'm figuring out, okay, I don't need this. This is for the stereo. Don't need it. Cut it, trace all the wires back to their home, cut them. If they go back to the fuse block, obviously cut them, pull the fuse. So it's actually kind of colorful and kind of cool looking at all the wires that are just strewn about all over the poor place. It's just a disaster. It looks like a disaster, but it's actually not that bad. I hate having autofocus. So, one thing I will say is, I think I've said this a couple times already. A lot of the issue I'm having is that there's just so much electrical tape. There's so much electrical tape, especially on a lot of this old stuff. This stuff is sticky. It's like tar. It's like just someone like wiped it in like axle grease. I mean, it is actually, it's not even axle grease. It's actually like that lube that they gave me whenever we put in the new bushings. Like that stuff, you can't get off of anything. And it is like, it reminds me of that first Ghostbusters movie where there's all that slime and shit all over everything in the library. It kind of reminds me of that. But this stuff is just like, it's disgusting. It is like something out of a Ridley Scott movie. On the floor here, we've got a ton of stuff. I've actually got just junk strewn all over the shop here. It's probably out of focus, I know. What I'm going to do is, once I cut everything, I'm going to thin out the wires. Obviously, I've got some wires here that are 15 feet long, I think, and I only need to be about 10 inches. So we've got a lot of butt connectors, so we'll obviously thin those out. I'm also going to get a grounding block, and I'm going to drill it in there, and I'm going to attach one ground, that way so I don't have those 4 grounds. I am kind of annoyed with myself, what the hell? Oh. Originally whenever I put this thing together, we had a race in like 2 days, and the wiring harness wasn't even in. So I had to like hustle my ass to get this thing to go. And I didn't necessarily cut corners, but I cut corners. So there's some, most my fault. I'll take full responsibility for it. That's just the way it is. Now that I've got some time where I can actually go through and fix this, it's not bad. Other than that, though, I've got to go to either Home Depot or maybe Harbor Freight. I got to get some plastic shielding, wire shielding, because I don't want to wrap all this crap in electrical tape again, because it just looks like It just looks awful when you do that. And that stuff, when it gets hot, it ages, it deteriorates. So we're going to make sure we do it the right way. It's just... I was hunched over this thing for a good 5 hours yesterday, and my spine feels like it's made out of like an old rusty erector set. It does not feel good. So I'm going to go to the gym and hopefully try and straighten my back out, because right now it just sucks. Yeah, so I'll touch base with you guys, and well, for you it'd be a couple seconds, for me it'd be like 3 hours. So see you guys in a minute. Alrighty guys, so I went to the gym, feel a little bit more energized, probably not much, but a little bit at least, and my camera battery's dying. Crap. Anyway, also stopped by Harbor Freight, picked up some stuff. Why is my camera doing that? There we go. Picked up some stuff. I got some, what is it? Heat shrink tubing, which we always are going to need, and protective wire wrap, and I got it in various sizes: 1/4 inch, 3/8, 1/2 inch, more electrical tape, and just a bunch of other normal stuff that I go through a lot of here. I want this to look as clean as possible. Cable management's very important, and even though I might not be looking at the engine very often because the hood's a pain in the ass to get off, I don't want it to look like crap. And it does help to definitely make sure that you do things, as I always like to say, above board. So doing your cable management on your Exocet or anything really, just make sure you take your time with it. Again, as I had said before, I didn't take my time because I had to get this thing ready for the first race that we had, and that is what's causing a lot of the issues now. Also, I wanted to make sure the thing actually ran before I switched a lot of this stuff and started cutting it out. So I've got a box full of connectors, and I will go over in detail at the end what I'm removing and how you guys can go about doing it, so you can get roughly the same positive results that I have so far. Periodically, I still plug in the engine computer, fire it up, make sure everything still works. That way, so I haven't completely screwed myself somehow. Other than that, I'm going to get back to it, and I'm going to charge the camera battery. Alrighty, guys. So, I just actually took an online exam, and my brain is, like, fried. Didn't do as well as I would have hoped either, but oh well. There's always the next time. So, day 3. It's really bright out. I really would have wished to have the Exocet actually driving today, because the wife and I are going to go out for a little drive and go look at stuff for gardening. So that's fun. But last night I did come out here a little bit, get a break from the textbooks, and I actually pretty much finished up a lot of the needless cutting and started wrapping stuff up. Nowhere near done though. But I wanted to show you guys a lot of the crap that I actually removed. So I'm going to go ahead and flip the camera around, because I've got them laid out on the floor here so I can give you a description of what each one of these things actually is. Alrighty, and here we are. So we've got, God, I can't even remember what, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 22, 23, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 32. So far, 32 connectors that we do not need. Some of these you'll recognize right off the bat, like those two guys right there. Those right there. Those bastards are like the AC condenser fan relay switches. The thing next to it is the cruise control. That gray box is the door locks. That one right there is for the airbags. There's just a lot of needless crap that you don't need anymore. And there's a lot of wires that came off of this. I'm probably up to about 6 pounds almost between electrical tape and wires and a bunch of other junk. So let's go over these in a little bit more intimate detail here. So we got this wire here. It's got, let's see how many wires coming off of it. Blue stripe, black, which is always ground, and then 5 others. So it's got 8 wires coming off of this. This actually goes underneath the carpeting inside the bay, and I believe this is primarily for going back behind, and this controls like the radio and some other stuff like that for like the antenna. So that, don't need that anymore. This guy here went for part of the blower assembly, so we don't need that. Focus, damn you. There we go. So this guy here, this was part of the blower assembly. Don't need it. Next thing we got here, airbag. Don't need it. This guy here, this was, as you can see here. Oh, come on, focus, you bastard. Door lock. Don't need it. Cruise control box. Don't need it. Oh, God. AC relay switches. Now, these things are actually on the driver's side, right by the airbox, and they're mounted to like a plastic plate. They're both the HC310s. There's a black prong and then a white prong coming off of it. Don't need those because the AC is obviously gone. Then we come over here. I know this was going for some of the lights by the cigarette lighter and that for like the airbag. Don't need that. This guy right here, I believe this went to part of the radio. So no worries there. Don't need that, obviously. This was for one of the door ajar light switches. Crap, don't need it. This guy here, definitely don't need. Some of you might recognize it. This is for the airbag sensor that was located up above the front of the dash. Obviously, no airbags, so he's gone. This was one of the unused connectors that I don't really know what it went for, but it was on the wiring harness and there was nothing plugged into it, which is why it's so clean and pristine looking. This guy here also was going to, I believe this is the overhead light, and this was going to go in case if you had certain attachments. There's some heavy duty wires going off to this, but it's got one of the door ajar switches. Actually, you know what? I know what this was for. This actually originally ran to the horn, so this would actually go to the front of the car. I lied. This goes to the front of the car. I believe this was for originally for the power for some of the fans and that originally. So again, don't need this guy. Junk. This went to the AC control unit, the knobs and all that, so don't need focus, damn it. Don't need this guy. Another bunch of knobs there. Here's the light for the airbag. Don't need that. This was going to the blower. I don't know exactly what it did, but there's some pretty heavy duty wires coming off of it. Oh, what else do we got here? This black thingamabob here. Don't exactly remember what this went to. Damn, I'm trying to remember what this went to. What did you go to? Oh, yeah, this went to the door lock. That was my bad. I should have plugged that back in. These two guys right here, these are what are the attachments for the actual doors. That these the parts coming off of here would then go into the flexible rubber that would go into the door for the speakers and the window and all the other fun stuff. These really big guys here, this went to the blower. This actually powered one of the blower fans, and I think it was actually also the vent controller for the heater core that was inside. So really heavy duty wires on that one. Don't need it. This guy right here went to a relay for air conditioning. Again, don't actually. I know I lied. That's for a headlight. I don't need that. This one here again. This actually plugs into the back of the cruise control. Don't need it. What do we got here? This one. What were you for? Pink, white, and black with a stripe. I'm trying to remember what you went to. I don't think this actually plugged into anything because it's pristine. Their plastic's not even marred up. So I don't think that actually went to anything in my car. Probably didn't have the option for it. What else do we got? This was for a ground sensor for, I think, something to do with the air conditioning, if I remember correctly. This was another part, a switch here that, or, a connector that went behind the dash. Didn't need it. I don't know what this went to, I'll be honest. The sticker wore off on it. Big deal. AC compressor. This actually ran to the pressure sensor for the AC system to let you know like what your, I guess what the pressure of your coolant, or not your coolant, but your refrigerant was. So obviously you don't need that. This here was another one of the prongs that ran behind the dash for the center console. Don't need that obviously. Here was another, this was a part for the fan actually originally, and since we replaced the fans and everything with the Mishimoto radiator, don't need that. Internal dome light. This actually had like 9 feet of wire coming off of it, so thank God that's gone. Under here was an unused prong that was attached to the wire harness. I believe this may have been for if I had like floodlights or something. I'm not really sure. Come on, focus, you bastard. I don't know. It's not focusing. Doesn't matter. Another wire here. Cable here. Don't really know what this one went to, but again, didn't need it. This was originally for the little lights that go to your door bay. If you open your door and you have that little light on your door. And the big guy right here was actually for the full power supply for the blower, if I remember correctly, because it's got this huge wire coming off of it that went right to the fuse block. So with all of these things removed, we have an absolute monster of wires still over here, and I still have a ton of it actually in the bag, and then there's just a crap load of it right here. And if you look, this houses everything that used to be all splurred out throughout here. That's the way it should look, nice and clean. If you look over here, I got shit everywhere, and that's obviously not good cable management. So we're going to clean that up as well. I bought a whole bunch of different stuff, so we'll definitely get that stuff housed up. Big thing I need to do is get a grounding block to do all the grounds, because I've got grounds there, grounds there, grounds there. I want to consolidate it all, make it look nice and clean. So with all that, yes, there's still a lot to do. I'm actually going to break this episode, I've decided now, into two, because there's just too much, and I don't want to make an episode that's like 45 minutes long, because I just don't want to do that. That's kind of stupid. So I'm going to go ahead and leave the video here. Right now I do have the engine, or the electrical cover over it. Main reason for that, it's not done, but that'll help kind of get the wires to set with, you know, where their new positioning is, and kind of help flatten it all out. Because if you notice, like when you put the wires together, they're very bulky, and they take on the shape of the area that they're confined to eventually. So that'll hopefully bring that down a little bit. It's actually about half an inch lower now than it was last night. So probably pop this thing open here later tonight, maybe tomorrow, and give you guys a real good look at what it looks like. But it's not bad. There's still a lot of wires in there that I could shorten, but some of those wires deal specifically with ohms and resistance, and if I cut those, I'm going to change the resistance, obviously, and it could really affect some stuff in a very negative way. Like the fuel pump would be a very good example. You got to be careful with some things, like especially on a car like this that deals with specific ohmage. If it's not correct, it's going to send weird signals to the ECU, and it could really screw stuff up. So I've left those alone just to be on the safe side, especially with the Mega Squirt that's going to go in here eventually. Because the original ECU, I think it only does like a check, like a systems check for like adjusting the engine fueling between rich and lean a couple times every other second, or every couple of seconds, and that's really not that great. So I'd like to get a Mega Squirt that does it like 200 or 300 times a minute. That would be great. So that's really my main thing, is an ECU upgrade for this will really help it run a lot cleaner and a lot smoother, which is important in a car where there's not a lot of weight, so the less the engine rattles and vibrates, definitely better. So I'm going to go and have a Red Bull because I'm exhausted, my brain hurts, and the wife's coming home, so now I've got to get ready for going out and going for garden shopping. So with that being said, guys, I am Bert, Pixel Armory. Like, favorite, subscribe. I'll see you guys later.